We're live. Welcome back to the Bearder Bros Golf Show. I'm Rod.
And I'm Marcus.
It is officially the end of the PGA Tour season, the Tour Championship wrapping up today. Hovland, man, he is the man and has really proven himself over the last couple of weeks that he could, achieve a different gear. And at the age of 25, it's really hard to foresee anything kind of derailing the path that he's on at this point. No major crazy swing, idiosyncrasies that would seem like he would cause an injury. Has remained relatively healthy throughout his career so far. What do you think about Hovland? These last couple of weeks and kind of the trajectory that he's on, and kind of how he closed out today. He had to actually go win it. As we talked about last week, Xander Schauffele always plays very well at East Lake. He's in the running, and he put up a number as well, going 8 under for the day. So, what do you think about Hovland?
Yeah, Hovland in typical young guy fashion is just a birdie chaser, just no holds bar, carefree, not afraid of anything, just goes balls to the wall. And then I think when you can drive the golf ball like him and you're always in the fairway and you're always, 300, 315 off the tee, it's not the longest, but he's still a big poke out there. So, you're putting yourself in good positions. And just like you said, a true homemade swing to where he's always locked in to what he needs to do for his swing. So I think all he needed was a short game. The putter's always been pretty decent. It's never been too bad. Don't get me wrong. It's not his strong suit, but when it's hot, it's very, very good. So
yeah, he was rolling the rock.
I think he's trending in the right way. And I think next year he's got to be up there, maybe not a full-on winner in a major in the four majors that we have, but gotta be Ricky Fowler type season where he's top 5 in all 4 or something competing for it. I just feel like, he's got a major type game now. With his short game being shored up and with the Ryder Cup coming up in 2 weeks, 3 weeks or something like that, he's gonna be on forefront for the European team. So they're gonna be expecting him to be, 4 matches, 5 matches, and showing what he's about for sure.
Yeah, I think they almost have a full month to go because I think the ladies' Solheim Cup comes up in 3 weeks. Yeah. So there's Solheim Cup and then Ryder Cup back to back. In 2 weeks, the PGA Tour, I guess is not a full wraparound, but they have the Fortinet Championship coming up. They were talking about Max Homa trying to go, I think, 3 times in a row at that.
Yeah, back to back
tournament. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they're already kind of starting it back up, and that's all good. I was a little sad last week when we were kind of talking about the winding down of the PGA Tour season, but there's still a ton of golf to be played. I was looking ahead as well for the ladies on the LPGA, even though they're still playing into the evening right now. They're kind of race to the CME Globe doesn't even wrap up until mid-November. So there's a lot of meaningful golf that's still going to be played. It's the inaugural year of the Grant Thornton Invitational, which is a mixed event with the PGA Tour and LPGA. So that'll be interesting to see that come about in the early part of December. So there's a ton of golf left to be played. But I think I agree with you in terms of Hovland that I think a major is coming in the next year or two. It would not surprise me at all to see him really get in the mix this coming year and close one out. He just has a different gear that he's been able to hit. And that little fade, it fades every time. When he's on, he's on. You don't see him, double crossing himself very much. It's a reliable shot. And like you said, he's not the longest, but he is very much serviceable. Above tour standards, average tour standards, and able to capitalize off of that and super accurate with his irons as well. So, he had some incredible shots out of bunkers, out of some rough lies that I was just, kind of floored by just because the performance that he put on this week, going 19 under from his start of the week to finishing at 27 under pretty damn incredible. I think he would have won
Yeah,
even if they were just going straight up, and everybody starting at zero. So he put the
yeah,
numbers up and went out and got the championship regardless. So kudos to him. I really do feel like he's the future of the game. He's there's a lot of youngins that we're going to see graduating from the Corn Ferry Tour this year that I think are going to be able to make some impact, like a Pearson Cootie. But right now, game ready. Made some modifications to his game over the last few years. I think
yeah.
you're spot on where you see him landing. Our mom, who's not exactly the most avid golfer, had an inquiry before we hopped on, and I just wanted to kind of, the scores are super low, under par. So she asked
Right.
a very useful question of how did that start. So let me pull this up. And so here you can see the standings and where everybody started their week. Even par, Sam Burns, Emiliano Grillo, Tyrrell Hatton, Jordan Spieth, Sepp Straka. One under, Taylor Moore, Nick Taylor, Adam Shank, Colin Marquardt, Jason Day. Two under, three under. I'll skip a little bit here. Four under. There's this big group at four under: Max Homa, Patrick Cantlay, Brian Harmon, Wyndham Clark, Matt Fitzpatrick. Five under was Lucas Glover. Six under was John Rahm. Seven under was Rory McIlroy. Eight under was Vic Hovland. And 10 under was Scottie Scheffler. You called it last week. I asked you, did you think that Scottie Scheffler was going to be able to hold on? And the answer was a resounding no. Day one, he went into the water on 15, ended up with the triple bogey. Another week where he was just struggling with the putter again.
Right.
This final round today on holes number 7 and 8, my guy had a three putt, and then on number 8 had a four putt. He looks really uncomfortable and over the ball, and I think he was a little bit snappy earlier in the week. What do you think is going on with Scottie Scheffler? I do have we you sent me an article earlier in the week about putting for amateurs. We're going to talk about that, but maybe Scottie Scheffler needs to take some tips from that. But what do you think is going on there, man? It's a pretty bad struggle considering how well he's hitting the ball.
I just think it's mental. I mean, much like most of those pro guys, once you get to that certain level, it's. I mean, very minute things in between that type of caliber of player compared to the next. So when you go from like a year last year, Hall of Fame type year, you win all the big stuff. You perform pretty much every tournament, worst finish tied 12th type deal. You know what I'm saying? It's got to be
Yeah.
mental. It's a mental block. You're in your own head. Now you're between the Scotty. Now you're between the TaylorMade Spider. I don't know. He's got some time. He's got a few weeks to get himself together. They're saying it's endurance based. They're saying he's a little bit tired. And I'm like a 26-year-old guy that, pretty much plays year round regardless, dealt with Texas heat his whole life, is tired.
Mhm.
I just don't see it for him.
No.
Some guys, it might be an excuse. Lucas Glover, he's a little bit older. He's been around the block a few times. Maybe, possibly. Don't think it's
And
happening.
playing deeper into the season than he ever has in terms of Lucas Glover. But
Exactly.
Scotty's been here.
He's done this before. And again, I just don't see that being an excuse for him, Scottie Scheffler in particular. So I don't see that. And I just think it's a mental block. And again, I just think he needs to get out of his own head, get back to simplifying things, read an extra Bible scripture instead of putting. I don't know.
Yo, man, chill out,
I
chill
don't
out,
know.
bro.
But
Quick pause before I respond to that. I do want to throw this before we get too deep. Too deep. I got a comment. Love from Norway. Man, the internet is an amazing place
that's
where
cool.
you can have somebody viewing all the way from Norway. So salute. Thank you for tuning in. Hovland has
Victory.
absolutely
Bars.
represented your country well, and it's an amazing thing to see. So, how is that? Norway golf is it worth the trip out there? Because
Oh, you know it is.
Clearly, you're churning out the best of the best. So, yeah, I think your second comment here is I think Hovland missed one fairway. Is that right? I believe you're correct. Let me pull it up here. I had his stats pulled up, but yeah, he was middle of the fairway. There was one where he went hand off the club and ended up 305 yards center
Yeah.
cut the entire way. So, let me pull up these stats here if they'll let me. It's not detailed, but yeah, I think you're spot on. Dude was a machine today. Yeah, shout out to Norway, man. That's a surprising comment. But yeah, thank you for the comment there, sir. Steiner, I'm Berglund. I'm going to screw that up, possibly. So just in response to your comments about Scottie Scheffler, I do think it's a mental deal, man. He just does not look comfortable over the ball.
Yeah.
Like Rory, multiple putter changes over the last few weeks, and I don't know, man. To me, we had the opportunity to hook up here in DFW and play some golf this weekend, and you asked me about my putter change, and for me, every once in a while, I like a different look or whatnot,
Yeah.
but changing out every single week I think is hard to catch a rhythm when you are not giving yourself a chance. And it also kind of points to that you don't really have an idea of what's the best look for you or visually what the best putter style is for you. Typically, you don't go back and forth between these wildly, mallet one day and then,
Right.
a blade the next day. It's
Yeah.
very I don't know. It's very strange the juxtaposition between the putter choices. So I don't know what's going on with him. It kind of had me worried a little bit in terms of the Ryder Cup and how much they could lean on him. In the four ball scenario, or not four ball, but alternate shot format
Yeah.
where he's going to have the putter in hand to close out some holes and put away the Euro team. And also just kind of seeing the last 30, we were kind of bagging on the European squad last week just because they had only had 3 automatic qualifiers make it so far. Rahm, McIlroy, and Hovland. But I was thinking about a handful of people that, I don't know how their points stack up, but it seems like there's a lag there in terms of like Hovland's number 17 on the Ryder Cup list for the Euros. Something's
Yeah.
wrong there. That just doesn't seem right. So you got, you're going to have some automatic qualifiers that are going to be on the weaker side for the Euros, but you think about a Terrell Haddon. We talked about Shane Lowry, Matt Fitzpatrick. They're going to actually have a pretty strong top
Tommy
10, 9
Fleetwood.
to 10. Yeah, Fleetwood played pretty well, was in the Tour Championship. I think, maybe 1 through 9, we underestimate them. The bottom half, the last 3, the last fourth of their group might be a little bit weak. I want to review that. I still have it up here just as a
Yeah.
quick follow up. See here, European team rankings. So you mentioned, Robert McIntyre's had a heck of a year as well. He even played well today in the Czech Masters. So he's still playing well. Yannick Paul, I've been watching him all year. Adrian Maronk, we both, kind of swoon over. We love his game. Dude's a hard worker, consistent. So again, top 9, I think they're very solid. It's near the bottom. Even, the Horgard kid's going to be pretty good. So I don't know. Maybe the Ryder Cup's more competitive than maybe we gave them credit for last week. Excuse me. What do you think?
I don't think they'll. I don't think they have it on the national stage. I mean, just
Okay.
they're not ready yet, and it's not a skill thing. Again, like I was just saying, it's not a skill thing. They got the
Yeah.
game. It's a thing of can you come up with the goods when the pressure's on, when you're fighting for your whole continent type deal. You're not just. This isn't just Poland. This isn't just Spain. This isn't just England. This is Europe. This is Europe versus America. This is top notch. Who's gonna have it? At the end of the day, I mean, bro, like regardless of status of what he's doing now and how washed up he is now, Ian Poulter, when it came down to the goods, the guy was a Ryder Cup stalwart. So
Yeah.
regardless of the skill level, if you can bring it when it matters the most, you're gonna have a name for yourself. I mean, what
Yeah.
is Poulter done besides that? And
Not,
that's what
yeah, he's been,
Poulter's argument is. And he's gonna
yeah.
say that in his interview of his life and everything he's ever done. He's,
This is
you
Ryder
know,
Cup. Those are
exactly.
the
I wasn't
highlights.
ever, I wasn't ever a multi tour winner. I wasn't ever just like a major championship winner, but I kicked everybody's ass in Ryder Cup. And he can say that for multiple cups. I mean, multiple cups, walking guys in, beating people up and down. I mean, the crazy eyes, bro. When you get
Yeah.
respect from a guy like Michael Jordan, just from your Ryder Cup stuff, bro.
Yeah.
Anyways, I
Yeah.
just think one
So,
last thing about Scottie Scheffler before I interrupt you
yeah.
again one more time. I'm sorry.
No worries. No worries.
When you're on the pro level and you're switching between a free flowing toe hang putter in his blade and then going to a straight back, straight through tailor made spider putter, I think you really have some mental things going on. That's the last thing I'm gonna have to say. Go ahead, Rob. I'm sorry.
Okay. So random, sir. Couple comments again coming in. So don't forget the two youngsters, Aberg. Totally forgot about him. He has been performing pretty well this year.
True.
Mentioned Hogard. They have the Ryder Cup game, and just hope Luke picks them. So that's what I think
True.
is going to be super interesting this year is the captain's picks that are going to come after the automatic qualifiers. I think particularly on the European side, that is going to be a little more dicey than it is on the U.S. side. I think
Yeah.
none of us disagree with the top six qualifiers on the U.S. side, but as we looked at with the list on the Euros, there's some that are going to qualify that you're like, maybe not your top tier guys or not ones that you would expect.
Yeah.
So I am also very interested. I know tomorrow Zach Johnson is making his final picks, and depending on work schedule, I just may pop in at some point and talk about that a little bit, just depending. But yeah, I think here's what we've been talking about all year as well. So you mentioned these young guys on the European side, and we've set this these young guys do not care anymore.
Right.
So, we talked about, Poulter stepping up to the plate in the in the Ryder Cup and, really bringing the game. But he was kind of in his 30s, mid career when he was doing this. And these young guys are just like firing, like you said, firing at flags like Hovland. They don't care. They're birdie machines. They, minimize the mistakes. You don't see a lot of mistakes coming from these guys that are gunning. I think they take very selective risk. I'm very interested to see, like in the background, how like the NBA has become very stat driven. If
Mm-hmm.
golf is also getting to that point where it's like, hey, selectively take a risk here. When you look at Hovland's Tour Championship week, he was first with only 2 bogeys in the entire weekend. It's
Yeah.
pretty damn good, man. And was second in birdies, and there weren't many equals out there with only 2 par 5s on the course. So yeah, I think it could be a lot more interesting than you think. We will see. I'm very interested to see because it's again the new crop coming in on both sides. On the U.S. side, I don't think, just kind of reviewing what we touched on last week, I'm not going to beat the dead horse. I don't think anyone really stepped up to the plate to knock the Brooks Koepka argument down. Had we had a ton of people really playing out of their mind, there could be an argument to not include Brooks in the Ryder Cup selections. I
Yeah.
think he kind of solidified it this week. He's probably going to still be sitting at number 7 on the qualification list. I think he should get in. I don't care about the other politics and bullshit. I hate
Yeah.
Liv. I've never been shy about saying that, but I think Brooks Koepka should absolutely be in. I think he's played well enough when it mattered in selective starts, and we talk about his mentality in the
Yeah.
big games to actually do it. What do you think? Does anybody stand out to you that would have knocked him off of that pedestal?
No, no, I think everybody did what they were supposed to do. But Steiner did make a good point. He hopes that Luke Donald picks him. But you got to think Luke's been very active in the DP World Tour this season. So he might have had a good chance to go out there and play with these young guys and see what their game is like in person. He might actually know who these guys are and give them a chance, like the Nikolai
Yeah.
Højgaard and then the Ludwig Aberg. I mean, pretty much everybody that's been interested in amateur golf and college golf knows who Aberg is, but I mean, he's doing that
Right.
on the national stage. He's done that from the PGA Tour. Then he went over to the DP World Tour when didn't have to qualify and to get into the playoffs and stuff. So I think enough is known about the guys, and hopefully, just like you said, they get an opportunity. But you know how a lot of the old guys think, they're like, well, they're young, they'll get another chance down the line. They might not have a chance down the line. You might as well go now
Now,
while they're hot and while they're playing well. So I'm piggybacking off that, Mr. Steiner. So I agree.
I don't think
I hope
there's
he
been
does.
I don't think there's been anybody that's a veteran on the European side that's had an amazing season that has not
Right.
involved with live, right? You know,
True.
and even, you know, none of them have played well. But I can't think of a veteran, maybe, you know, you mentioned Pablo Larrazabal, but he's never played in a Ryder Cup.
Ever. And
Um,
he's like 35, 36. He's like my
right.
age.
So I don't know. So maybe you go over it with youth over experience, and just say, hey, we're going to play out of our mind for 4 days and see what we can do. You know,
True.
we're all in this kind of weird space. So I don't think there's any wrong answer there. You know, you catch lightning, and you know, it could be a surprise. You're playing in Europe this year, which also, you know, you can give that a little bit of credence that, you know, the U.S. won't have the home soil to kind of lean on, and so it'll be a pro-European crowd. Um, so who knows? It's a very interesting conversation. I didn't think that we'd be here, but after kind of just looking a little bit deeper, I was like, okay, this might be more exciting than, you know, at face
Yeah.
value, that we initially anticipated. So, um, cool beans. So yeah, this week I was looking at Colin Morikawa and Keegan Bradley's performance. Do you think those two gents did well enough?
I think both of them
If
started
you're in
hot.
the chat, let me know. I can hear me. I don't know if Marcus is cut out or not. If you're in the chat, let me know who you can hear. Apologies, we might having some technical difficulties.
You can't hear me?
Hmm.
You
Well, I'm
can't
gonna
hear
keep
me?
rolling. So, in my eyes, it looks like to me Colin Morikawa had a really good week.
Can you hear me?
Oh, go ahead, Marcus.
Yo, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Hmm. So Marcus jumped out real quick just to reconnect here. So, um, Steiner, I think experience is overrated. These young guys are ice cold and hit it 350 yards and straight. I agree. You know, I don't know if it's equipment or if it's, you know, the just better training and something's different with these young guys. So I agree that the experience can be overrated. If you just go out there and shoot a score, you shoot a score. I think we got your back,
Yeah.
Mark. Cool beans. I don't know if you caught that last comment, but Steiner said, I think experience is overrated. These young guys are ice cold and hit a 350, you know, and straight.
Oh yeah, no, agreed, agreed. I just think that nowadays, with like I said, how carefree the guys are, they know that the stats provide. If you hit the ball far as hell, it doesn't even really matter if you're hitting fairway or not, because you're giving yourself a wedge, you're giving yourself a 9 iron, you're giving yourself scoring clubs. So you're gonna put yourself in 20 to 30 feet range and par or birdie, you get lucky, and then of course you get it in the fairway, you get a wedge in your hand. These guys are dialed in, so they know their yardages. They know they're going to hit it to 10 to 15 feet, and they just got to make a putt. So I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. The young kids
Yeah.
are going to come with it regardless.
I think, just even watching today, there was one hole in particular that I was watching, down the stretch with Xander Schauffele. He went hard left, but he carried a lot of trees and ended up in this kind of clearing because he was past all the trouble. So I'm
Right.
interested, over the next couple of weeks, just kind of taking a look at the course that they're going to be playing over there in Rome and looking at the setup and how it's going to play like you said, if it's a bomber's course, hit it long. If you pull or tug a few and aren't in the fairway, these are probably some usually tame conditions. They're not going to grow the rough up super crazy. It's going to be reasonable. They're going to play to some action, and so it'll be very interesting to do some course research on it and talk a little bit about that closer we get to that.
Yeah.
So yeah, go ahead.
Some of the guys have had a chance to play out there. I mean, I think this year they did not make that trip over and play on the World Tour like they usually do in like connection with it. But JT's played the
Mhm.
course that he played the Italian Open in 2021, and there was a number of other guys that went out there, got a chance to see the lay of the land and everything like that. And I believe the TV coverage had it on where the rough was a little bit built up, so I don't know if they'll be able to just free will it like a Bryson DeChambeau was doing that year, where he,
Mm,
really cooked on them. But I
yeah,
definitely think they'll still be able to pull driver, pull 3-wood, be aggressive, get it as close as they can. And I mean, everybody's going to be fighting the elements in there because that course is elevation driven. And so, like, if you're not very dialed in with how far up or how far down that you're hitting the ball and stuff like that, it's not going to matter if you got hometown crowds or not. So I think it's just like what you said. It's an open course for everybody. It's not gonna, really fare well for one person compared to another. So I think
yeah.
that it'll be a good time. I think it'll be a good competition, but I just don't see the bottom half of Europe really just coming with anything worth talking about. It, even with them
No,
being carefree and stuff, but the time will
we'll
tell. And again, just like you said, a month away.
yeah, we'll see. I think we're in a little bit of disagreement there. That I think they're gonna have a better chance than you're giving them. But hey, you got to bring the game when it's time. Earlier in the week, we'll transition. You sent me kind of transitioning off of the Scottie Scheffler putter struggles, Rory putter struggles, which he also never looks comfortable over the ball. I don't know what the deal is there. But you sent me an article about putting using an alignment line, whether that's drawn on or the ones that come on the ball, and that amateurs probably shouldn't use that. Let's pull this bad boy up. Thought I had it. Chicago. There we go. All right. So PGA Tour winner, it's Michael Kim. And so a little bit of background on Michael Kim. I've been following him quite a bit on Twitter as of late, or now X. And he's a really analytical guy, does a lot of kind of prior to a tournament course breakdowns, course setups, kind of talks about what the low score is going to be just based on his experience. He's a really analytical guy. I can see him, post career either going into instruction and or in the booth just because he looks at the game, not just as a player, but really breaks it down, I think, a little bit further and takes the time to put it out there and kind of go back and forth. But he commented on this Digest article that most amateurs should not use an alignment line because of their poor green reading skills and should honestly just kind of lay the ball down, which I do see a lot of people doing that, and kind of going off of instincts versus a starting point. What do you think about this as a general concept? And I'm going to scroll down here. Hopefully, it does come up, so you can kind of look at these stats reset a little bit. Hopefully, this comes through on
Yeah.
the feed a little bit better. But I just kind of let that play. What do you think about this concept um, that Michael Kim's talking about?
I agree. I agree. And it you read the article and it made some very pertinent points. I think the main thing is when you're not that good at green reading, you need to really be more natural ability based. You need to just be able to, you need to just look at it and see. And he said that he makes his adjustments over the ball once he's gotten behind it and he feels more comfortable with what his read was. And that's a PGA Tour guy saying that he still needs to get over the ball to see a better line. So it's not
Yeah.
anything out of the norm for you to feel like, oh, well, now that I'm over the ball, it's going to do this or it's going to do that. And me personally, I felt like I have gotten a little bit better with my putting and a little bit more natural base. Just when I started, I happen to have a ball here. It's just a strict sign. Oh, my fault. It's a strict sign. But I use the number and I use the name. I play the Titleist Pro V1X. So that's what I line up parallel to my putter face, and I go from there. I don't use the alignment line because I have to be too exact. You don't want to feel
Yeah.
like you're being a robot like a Rory or something like that, where you're like, all right, if it's not this, and then you come in, you put your coin back down. Now we're 5 minutes in, and you're still reading the same putt for a double
Yeah.
bogey. You're not even putting
Okay,
for
Patrick.
birdie, bro.
Okay, Patrick Cantlay. Yeah, no doubt.
Right.
And I think I'm very different, and this, we all have strengths and weaknesses to our game. I would say my short game, just because early on playing, I needed to figure out a way to save strokes. So short game and green reading was something that I leaned on a lot. So my style is probably a little bit different than most. So I do use a drawn on lineup line on every ball. It's part of my ritual. Can't live without it. I do not like putting without it. But my putter that I'm currently that's in my bag has no line. So it kind of takes away that having to match up the two lines, especially if your ball's on the slope. I can understand how that might mess with somebody's visual. Like you said, if the two lines don't match up, then you're kind of resetting and kind of not trusting it. And
Right.
how I read greens is also probably a little bit different, at least in my mind, is that I start at the hole and kind of try to get to a low point and read the slope of the green and trace where I think the ball is going to go in the hole. And then kind of somewhere at that point, depending on the length of the putt, that's where I'm putting my lineup line with on the high point of the, of the read. So
Yeah.
it's very, putting is the one thing that there's so many different ways to do it and get it right. But I think overall, I agree with that. Just kind of if you play with a bunch of amateurs, you play with your buddies, it's very interesting to see people's reads, and you're like, I didn't see that. They'll put it
Right.
and, it's like way below the hole, and you're like, damn, I wouldn't have done that. And so you can kind of get some, you see the credence to that, which is why, again, I double back to Michael Kim is probably going to be an instructor someday when his
Yeah.
PGA career, winds down, just because like he has a insight and he does a lot of these comparisons and talks a little bit about amateur golf. So it's interesting to see him have this insight about the putting game. I will be kind of looking forward and probably looking back a little bit on Scottie Scheffler's technique and see if he's struggling with that. I don't think he uses a line on the ball. I don't know, man. It's just painful to watch sometimes. So
Agreed. Agreed.
cool beans, man. On the topics, because we hit the Ryder Cup stuff, and we still don't know who the team's going to be until tomorrow. Um, we gave props to Hovland. Any other random topics that you have before we wrap up this evening?
Random. Well, I guess as far as like the LPGA goes, I think that they might have a chance to save like what we would call a good season for them, just because that their championship goes all the way into November. It gives them a chance to get more spotlight, more
Yeah,
coverage, more, TV time and stuff like that. So I think that they should be able to fight back and get some good ratings again. Just, but it's like what we were saying, like, so long ago, which seems so recent because we're always talking about it. but it's like they have such a good opportunity with such a good crop of golfers right now that they need to be trying to do everything possible to get that under wraps and just push that
and
product out to
market.
everybody. Yeah,
Like right
yeah,
now in late August, I would be advertising that Grant Thornton event like crazy. It's just, to me, it's a
yeah,
wonderful opportunity to like feature PGA Tour players, and I don't know if they're still trying to lock in the rosters and who's officially going to be playing. I know we have Nelly Korda playing for sure, but I agree. Like they're missing an opportunity, and Steiner is coming in hot with the comments. So he brings this up, and it's a very interesting point. This is a good finish to the show. I really do think. Thank you for this comment. I wish DP Tour would take notes from the PGA. PGA is so good on the entertainment side. DP just struggle to advertise and get fans involved. So, this is like first world problems because, the whole thing about Live is kind of like it came about because it was golf but louder. And
yeah,
to me, especially someone who, if you've experienced a PGA Tour event in person, they're pretty interactive. And so a lot
yeah,
of people have opinions about things that they haven't engaged in. So it is very interesting for someone on the other side of the pond to have a thought that, the PGA Tour has a great entertainment value, right? So we talked a few weeks ago about the No Laying Up Boys and their consistent complaints about commercials, which kudos to the PGA Tour getting a sponsor that allowed no commercials on the back nine today. Is that always possible? No. Can you always line up a sponsor that's willing to foot the bill, for that uninterrupted coverage? No. But overall, I think good or bad and reactionary or not, the PGA Tour finally figured out how to like revamp the product. I never thought it was bad. Could it have been a little bit stale sometimes? Absolutely. But different camera angles, they're featuring more crowd interaction, which also I forgot to mention this earlier. I'll come back to it. But it's very interesting to see how the PGA Tour has evolved. So I appreciate when you get to hear other perspectives, from other sides of the world where they're like, PGA Tour ain't that damn bad. And I think the strong season that they've had this year has also highlighted the fact that we pretty much can live without live golf. Like it has been the most, other than
yeah.
the distraction part of it, from an
Okay.
entertainment standpoint, we're not tuning into that. It's not bringing the value. What are your thoughts on that comment and that perception of the PGA Tour?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it more. Honestly, I think that unfortunately, it's more of a spotlight on what's going on with the DP because just like what we were talking about, I mean, we're not really paying attention to the DP World Tour standings because they don't really matter. We're worried about the World Cup the world ranking points for their Ryder Cup team and who's best off of that list. Because again, they have really just not really had. I don't know. I guess like I feel like DP World Tour
They,
needs to kind of force the issue with like money. Like I think they need to either the sponsors need to find better sponsors or they need to put just go out on a limb and just fork the money out. Just be like, hey, this week the prize pool is not going to be the normal. It's going to be this, and then everybody's going to write articles or something like that. And then you're going to bring attention to the DP World Tour again, and then they're going to be able to provide more, more tour stops again and things like that. But I
yeah,
wholeheartedly agree,
kind
Steiner. I don't
kind of
know
like
what's going on with them.
it's kind of like the whole, like I get like kind of like a elevated event like the PGA Tour had to go
Right.
to. Just for comparison's sake, I had to pull this up. 30th, even though again it's the Tour Championship, so it's hard to compare apples to apples, but 30th place in the Tour Championship today received $500,000. Pretty damn good for placing 30th and shooting
That's
kind of
pretty
either
damn
over
good.
par or even par, right? So check Masters today. Payout for the winner, which I think was a gentleman named Clements, which is his first win, first Englishman to win this tournament, $220,000. So the problem with the DP World Tour is that it's been losing a lot of its, key players and names that, brought attention to the tour to either, live golf, the younger guys, or the PGA Tour. Years ago, Terrell Hatton was a mainstay and that I would stay up to watch just because he was volatile, but the game's there, man. And,
Yeah,
Tommy Fleetwood was, tearing it up over there. So they've lost a lot of their talent to the PGA Tour, and I do think it's because of money. I'm sorry. If you can compete at the highest level, come over here and double and triple your money kind of with similar results and your game still holds up. Why wouldn't you do that? I get it, it's a
exactly.
life adjustment, but if you can stack more money earlier on in your career, you can move back, to England or, Norway, wherever it is that you originated from to be closer to family in your later years. But when it comes to making money, it's kind of like DP is becoming the feeder tour. I hope that the agreement with the Saudi PIF, does allow them to have more money inflowing
Right,
into
right.
their game and keep people home, right? Because next thing you know, Morocco's going to be over here. The Hoygaard, brothers are
True.
going to be over here. And so again, you keep raiding the cupboard and they're not able to hold on to the players that would have us staying up early. Like I said, I watched, the tournament today just because it was kind of later in the morning on the US side over here. And it was
Yeah,
a pretty close tournament, got tight at the end with Matt Wallace putting on a push. But I would watch more. I mean, that's how we grew into the game of golf. Is pretty much like watching, golf late at night. Asian Tour, DP World Tour in the middle of the morning, or
right.
early morning on the U.S. side. But there's just not the names that we're used to seeing or getting excited about. I'm sorry, but Marcel Seam just doesn't do it for me anymore. He
Right.
just doesn't. Joe Loudon
Just
does not do it for me anymore.
same 3 or 4 names, and then everybody else is like, well, who is this guy? Well, I don't know, but he's about to win. Oh, well, that's why they're making 200K for a win. If there's the people still that matter out there, or if Matt Wallace randomly, what are you doing out there, bro? Like, are you trying to make a push for the Ryder Cup or what? Because you could be doing that on the PGA Tour with your World Cup, with your world ranking points and stuff like that. You never know.
Yeah.
You never know. I don't know.
Yep. I think we have another commenter from across the pond, and I think this is a good wrap up. Thank you, Steiner, for your interaction today. Thank you so much. We appreciate you joining our humble little show over here across the pond. We have Bangarang. Victor was throwing darts. Incredible weekend of golf. Um, Maybe that's not from across the pond. It looked different on my little preview screen here, but yes, Victor, boy's gonna stay hot. He's gonna be a factor in the Ryder Cup.
Yeah.
Incredible golf this weekend. It's just like they all they had to do was lock in on the flag, and that ball was going next to it. Between him and Xander today, it was an
And,
incredible weekend of golf or final round. So good way to sign off. Thank you guys. We're here every single week. I'm going to try to adjust my schedule. I have a fun little golf trip coming up this week. I'm going to drop a video about getting prepared for a golf trip. Just thought about that. So might have to make some adjustments to the schedule, but we're going to try to make it work either way. Thank you for joining the Bearded Bros Golf Show. I'm Rod.
and I'm Marcus.
Thank you and peace out.